What is up, guys? Dre Ventures here, back with another episode. Now, welcome to episode number 3 of this ongoing series where I address common misconceptions surrounding Ripple and XRP. Now, before we start, make sure to join our Discord group where you will find the answer to most of your questions regarding XRP and Ripple, as well as daily debates and discussions. Finally, XRP Hodor released an interesting entry on his blog yesterday titled Crystal Ball XRP Price Prediction. I myself quite enjoyed it, and I think you guys might find it interesting. The link for this will be in the description below. Today I will be covering a statement a lot of people are making that was made kind of famous by a misunderstanding a lot of people had during the Swell conference, which goes somewhere along the lines of banks don't need XRP, they will never adopt it. As always, I will try to keep my opinions to a minimum, addressing the subject with as many facts as possible. Now, to start off, like I mentioned yesterday briefly, banks will just use a liquidity provider. The liquidity provider will assume the risk of market swings while the tokens are in transit, and sometimes they'll come out ahead and sometimes they'll come out behind. Now, with this being said, I will requote Thomas when he said that the time banks are exposed to XRP during a transaction can be quite short. It could be on the order of 5 to 10 seconds. So the amount of volatility during such a short period of time, even for a very volatile asset, is actually not that bad. You can also rely on third-party liquidity providers to take on that risk. And those kinds of companies are actually very interested in taking on these kinds of risks to make a profit, and they're very comfortable with that. Now, this wouldn't work with Bitcoin, because with Bitcoin you might be exposed to volatility over an hour, which is very different than for the volatility over seconds with XRP. Another very common question is, why can't banks just use Ripple technology, setting aside the use of XRP? Well, the system Ripple provides delivers faster payments, but not faster settlement. Today's settlement times don't really matter because the payment itself takes quite a while. So if you actually solve the payment problem, enabling it to complete in seconds, and the settlement time still takes days, customers will still have to pre-fund their payments to avoid the slow path. So there still is a settlement time issue to resolve. Now, the factor that's driving banks to Ripple right now is that the banks want to save their customers money, particularly for new corporates that spend a lot of money pre-funding payments. So banks do see a huge value in Ripple even without XRP, but every bank that uses Ripple's payment system also eliminates all the technical obstacles to settling with XRP. So for a payment where XRP is faster, cheaper, or both, there's absolutely no reason for them not to use it. I also found it adequate to mention an entry from the XRP chat forum that explains that XRP is the native currency of the Ripple network that only exists within the Ripple system. It's not dependent on any third party for redemption, and XRP is the only currency in the Ripple network that doesn't entail counterparty risk. A counterparty risk, also known as a default risk, is a risk that a counterparty will not pay as obligated. Financial institutions or other transaction counterparties may hedge, take out credit insurance, or require the posting of collateral. With that being said, offsetting counterparty risk is not always possible because of temporary liquidity issues. Now, the author states that the elimination of counterparty risk is the reason why XRP will in fact be adopted by everyone who uses the Ripple network. Focus your attention on Ripple's ability to implement quickly and broadly across the globe, and that will translate into XRP's strength and growth. Now, I want to use this post as a bridge into Ripple's xRapid's implementation, and I want to mention a point addressed by Ripple's CEO during the Quora Q&A session, where he responds to the question, how close are we to XRP being adopted by the banks? Now, he states some of their customers are already in the early stages of using xRapid, Ripple's XRP liquidity solution. Payments into emerging markets can require multiple currency traders and pre-funded local currency accounts in the destination. Instead, payment providers and banks can use XRP to fund their payments on demand, without intermediaries, at a cost that is less than half of the current cost. He also mentioned something very true, being, and I quote, "It's safe to say that we have to crawl before we can walk, before we can run. This is uncharted territory for banks and payment providers, and it's going to take some time before you see broad adoption of digital assets solving multi-trillion-dollar opportunities." Suffice to say, we are very pleased by the interest from various pilots our customers are already running. xRapid is for payment providers and other financial institutions who want to minimize liquidity costs while improving their customers' experience. Again, xRapid dramatically lowers capital requirements for liquidity by uniquely using XRP. It offers banks and payment providers a highly efficient, scalable, and reliable liquidity option to service cross-border payments. Now, I can't predict the future. I can't with 100% certainty tell you it will succeed. As far as I know, no one can, and hell, with Monday's newspaper, we'd all be rich. But what I can tell you is that Ripple has a solid ground, and I am personally pleased with the milestones and advancements it's been making. Ripple is actually doing business with banks, and they have their attention. They are implementing the system. Just look at SBI's last report. Ripple has also been making incredible inroads with those in power. Ripple now has over 100 banks signed up that are experimenting with XRP. Just a few months back, Ripple recruited the former business director at Swift, which, if you don't know, is the network that today, quote-unquote, facilitates money transfers between 11,000 financial institutions in every country. The fact that the quickest way to get money from one country to another today is by literally boarding a plane with a suitcase full of cash and physically flying it there is a major problem that Ripple Network is trying to solve. Finally, to conclude, as an investor, Ripple has established confidence in my choice for XRP, but I can't stress this enough that people are being lazy and cutting corners when it comes to doing their due diligence and research. Now, don't use this channel as advice in what to invest in. Use it as one of your many sources of information you should already have. Don't invest in something just because someone told you to or it's their favorite investment. Trust me, there's enough hype and misinformation out there for you to be taking advice from people on what to invest in. It has to come from a conclusion you made after thorough research. Now, that is going to conclude today's episode. If you did enjoy it, if you felt like you've learned something, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe with notifications on so you get notified every time I post. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you on the next one.